Yo, what's up everyone? It's me again. So in this video, I want to talk about my experiences playing uh, Ice Nova of Frostbolts Archmage Hiero in Path of Exile SSF. Um, his character is currently level 96, and at this point in the league, you guys probably know this is one of the most broken builds in this entire league. Um, There's probably, every content creator has probably played this build by now and made videos on it. So I'm not going to try to make like a guide or anything, but I just want to talk about my experiences playing this build from 1 to 96, how I crafted all the gear, the type of content that I'm doing with it, how I am doing T17's with this build, and just like talk about random stuff pertaining to the build. So hope you guys enjoy this new experimental video format, which is basically just talk about the experience playing a build. I guess it's not really that novel of a concept, but yeah. All right, so I guess let me just play some B-roll for you guys in the background while I talk about the build. So this is some footage of me doing a T17 map from the stream that I did before making this video. This is T17 Sanctuary. Let's play this in the background. This is not me. This is an AI called Luna who streams on my stream. You can ask her questions and she'll respond with an AI generated response. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, this build's like, definitely surpassed my expectations. Like it's able to farm T17's with, super ease. And a lot of the gear is extremely SSF viable as well. I guess to start off, talking about the defenses of the build, it's one of the most defensible builds I've ever played. The EHP is just ridiculous. First of all, this build has 50% mind over matter. Second of all, this build uses a Doriani Glorious Vanity, which is Corrupted Soul, and that allows you to split damage half and half between life and ES. So basically, what you're looking at here, I mean, I have a massive shrine up, but normally this build has like 3,000 life, 3,000 ES, and like 8,000 mana. So that means your total pool is like those values added up. So you have like 14, 15k like total EHP pool, which is ridiculous. Like when I'm playing Bone Shatter, my EHP pool is like 4k, 5k, and it's like really hard to get more than that. But on this build, you can get a 15k EHP pool, which is crazy because the damage is split first between life and mana, and then the damage that goes into life is split between ES and life. So insanely good EHP pool, 100% suppression, of course. And then because you're a hero, you have 4 endurance charges, which is 16 PDR. And then you craft Gravicius mod on your body, and then you get Eldritch Implicit taken as and Corel Benchcraft taken as on your helmet. So in total, you have like 12 PDR from your body, 16 from endurance charges, that's 28. And then you can get like 14 on the helmet as well, which is like something like around 40% PDR or something. So very, very high PDR. You don't even need armor. Extremely high PDR, like 40 PDR with this high of an EHP pool is just insane. And then, get Chaos Res up to like 50, 70, and you're basically good to go. Really, really good defenses. And also the sustain is also one of the best things in this build. The mana regenerates at a rate of like 1500 per second or something, as you can see there. So, very, very good mana sustain. And then you craft lightning damage leeched as life on your glove implicit, which allows you to leech life. And then you take energy shield leech on the tree, which allows you to sustain your ES pool. And you need the life leech because of Corrupted Soul taking damage into your life here. And then there's also a mastery you can take on the tree, which is 10% instant leech. So the sustain on this build is totally, insane. Like I've never played a build like this tanky and this sustainable. Yeah, really, really good experience playing this build. And then as for damage, this build clocks in at around like 10 million DPS in my PoB. It could go more, it could go higher. My gear is like not optimal here. I'm missing like a couple of sources of damage, but yeah, I was able to clock in like 10 million, Shaper DPS, which is pretty good. And I feel like the damage might actually be more. I'm not 100% sure how the shotgunning behavior works on this build. For some reason, like sometimes my damage goes up a lot just randomly. I think it has something to do with the returning projectiles. Here's a T17 boss here. I do have a shrine up, but even without the shrine, the damage is extremely good. I have not failed a single T17 on this character. And the build's tanky enough to where you can like clear the entire map and then do the boss. And your chance of dying and failing is extremely low due to the defenses and offenses of this build. So I've been having a great time farming T17s on this build. I would really recommend you play this build in SSF if you haven't already, if you're interested. The build's definitely getting nerfed next league. Like, it's definitely like just way too powerful. Like here, I didn't even have a damage shrine and the boss died really fast. So yeah, that's basically the build. Really good defense, really good sustain, really good offense. Great. So now that you've seen a T17, you can kind of see how this build could basically do all the content in the game. And then, yeah. But that's not why you're watching this video. If you're watching this video, you probably already know that this build is broken, or you've already been playing this build yourself. But I guess you might be interested to like hear about how I progressed this character through SSF, how I built it, leveled it, crafted the gear, played it, and everything. So yeah, I guess to start off, we can just quickly go over PoB. So this is my endgame PoB here. This is basically a snapshot of my character as it is right now. A lot of this stuff is just pretty straightforward. You can just like see all this stuff here for yourself. Most of it is just like taking mana nodes and then like life nodes. Yeah, it's basically it, pretty self-explanatory tree. The most important things are hitting 50% mind over matter, which you can get 40% here and then 10% here. I think it's actually optimal if you have a Watcher's Eye that has mind over matter on it as well. Or, the damage taken from mana before life mod. Because as you can see here, my life plus ES is less than my mana. So I think it's actually optimal to get like more than 50%, mind over matter effect. Like I think ideally you would get like a Watcher's Eye with that mod and then you'd be like at 60 and then you would have like optimal EHP scaling. But even without it, it's totally fine, and I just don't have that Watcher's Eye, so whatever. And then what else is important here? Here I have taken Holy Dominion, not only for res, but also shock effect. This build, I think it is good to have shock effect, because you don't always crit on this. Actually, for some reason, you have 20% crit chance, so yes, you don't need this. But this is like an elemental overload build, so the more shock chance you get, the more consistent it is, but it doesn't matter too much because you hit a lot and the crits shock by default. Oh, well, actually, I don't know about that. I'm actually not sure how elemental overload interacts with shock because it says that ailments never count as being from crits. Does that mean that crits don't shock? I don't really know. In any case, I have 20% shock effect from Ash, Frost, and Storm and Holy Dominion, which is good. And then, here you have the Dorgani Glorious Vanity to Corrupted Soul. Gotta get that ES scaling, and splitting the damage between life and ES allows you to have a lot better EHP pool, so very good. And then I just happen to have one with Chaos Res, Mana Regen, and Evasion, which is great because I need all those stats. Oh, I forgot to mention this build has like 14k evasion, which is really, really good. 64% evade is pretty nice considering you already have such high like EHP pool and other defenses, so that's great. And I guess you also have like 15% block chance from dual wielding, but that's just whatever. Another thing that I found kind of annoying in this build though was like suppression. So you do have to get 100% suppression on this build. It's just such a good defensive layer. Although I found some difficulty in getting this because the mapping setup of this build involves using Kitava's Thirst. And Kitava's Thirst allows you to cast Frostbolts automatically every time you spend more than 100 mana. So first of all, you have to optimize your mana cost so that it's above 100, but as close to 100 as possible, because you don't want it to be too expensive because then your mana will go down. But as long as you keep this above 100, Kitava's Thirst will trigger Frostbolt, and then that will automatically cause your Ice Novas to get casted from the Frostbolt, and you can basically clear just by doing this. Here I have slower projectiles on for more, single target damage. This is what I run in T17's. And then when I'm just like mapping, I use faster projectiles because this allows you to have a lot better clear. Yeah, as you can see, everything just moves really fast with the setup and you can clear a lot better like this, in my opinion. Although you do have to like cast the Ice Nova like in the direction of the balls as well. Like if I cast over here and the Frostbolt comes out behind me, it'll never get casted there. So that's another thing you have to watch out for. Like if you're like wondering why you're not doing damage, it's because you do have to cast like on the bolt, because it's not like auto targeting. You still have to like point your cursor to the Frostbolts, which is kind of annoying with faster projectiles because it moves faster, but it does result in more clear. And as long as you point your cursor like in the direction, like in the general direction, I think it's fine. But yeah, I use faster projectiles for mapping, and then slower projectiles for, single target situations. And then you can also use returning projectiles as well. Like if you're farming a map that has like a closed off layout, returning projectiles is good in mapping. But returning projectiles is not so good in like wide open spaces because there's nothing to return from. So yeah, you can basically swap between those three supports, the different projectile behavior supports whenever you want. But yeah, I like faster for mapping. And then yeah, so anyway, going back to suppression, got lost there on a tangent. So one of the annoying things about this build is that I think you have to use Kitava's Thirst for clear, because it's just so nice to automatically cast the Frostbolt. If you don't, you have to either use Arcanist Brand to cast it, or you have to self cast it, which is like not optimal. Like you really don't want to be doing that. You could do it, but it's kind of smoge, so I'm not really into that. So I think having Kitava's Thirst and mapping is really good. But then the problem with that is that Kitava's Thirst doesn't have evasion. So it's like you can't use the 15% spell suppress mastery to cap suppress. And also using Kitava's Thirst means that you can't have suppress on your helmet, obviously. So I ended up having to like spend 4 skill points like this just to cap suppress, in addition to anointing inveterate, and like that allowed me to cap suppress even with Kitava's Thirst on. So here you can see I'm exactly capped here, and I have like suppress on all my gear as well. Like everything has suppress, so it is a little bit difficult to cap suppress, but it can be done. Just get suppress on every gear, every item, and then anoint inveterate. And then you may have to take some small nodes to cap. Alternatively, you could just like, run a Mage Blood, but, SSF. So, yeah. So yeah, that's basically suppress. A little bit annoying to cap, but you know, it is what it is. Other than that, the tree is basically pretty straightforward. You know, you can just like look at the nodes yourself and you can basically see what things are. And yeah, that's basically it. And if I were to level this character from like 96 to 100, I'd probably just take some more like mana nodes or something. Yeah. And yeah, if I had like a Watcher's Eye, I would use it as well, but it is what it is. This build is a little bit tight on like strength and dex, but yeah, you can make it work just with gearing. So yeah, that's basically the tree. And then for leveling, I started off with, just rolling magma until Firestorm. And then as soon as I got Firestorm, I did Archmage Firestorm, and it was pretty good. And then as soon as I got Ice Nova of Frostbolts, I swapped to Ice Nova of Frostbolts Archmage. People have told me that this build is also league startable. Like you can league start with this build in SSF. But the main difficulties would be, getting, Ice Nova of Frostbolts because you have to farm a lot of lab to get this on average. So that can be annoying. And then, getting Kitava's Thirst could also be a headache. You can definitely league start this, but it would be a 2-button build for a long time until you get Kitava's Thirst, and you would probably use Ball Lightning until you get Ice Nova of Frostbolts. But from what I've heard, this build is definitely league startable, so there's that. Great. Okay, what else is there to talk about? Alright, so we covered gameplay, covered tree and stuff. Talked about all the random weird shit. Okay, I guess I can also talk about like, just real quick, like the T17 setup that I'm running. So, as you can see, I was doing T17's in the footage, and this is the setup that I'm running right now for T17's. So this tree looks kind of complicated, but it's actually not. The main idea is Nico packed with energy, with shrines, with Huck, who is giving you, the buffs that he gives you in addition to Haste Aura. You can like roll an item to give him like level 15 haste, and then you can like get that aura on you if you get Huck. And the best thing about Huck is that when you die, he stays with you. So like when you have shrines and you die, they go away. But Huck stays with you even if you die. So I found it really nice to bring him along in T17's. And then also I'm bringing along Einhar. Einhar doesn't actually deal too much damage, but he does give you an aura that gives you life regeneration. So like why not bring him along? So yeah, this tree is basically just, maximum like power in maps. You have packed with energy giving you damage, movement speed, all res. You have shrines giving you the shrine buffs. And like if you can get like a speed shrine or an echo shrine, it's just like completely free. And divine shrine also, obviously. And then just Huck and Einhar, and that's my T17 setup. And then here I've basically just taken, as much quant as I could possibly get. Just maximize the loot that I get from the boss. I think this build could also get like increased modifier effect and like be fine. But I have left this off because, some of the maps are difficult, and, increasing the map modifier effect is great for loot, but it also increases the chance that you die. Like some of the mods are still really hard even after the nerf, so I've decided to be careful and not take these, but you could take these if your build's really good, and then you would get even more loot from the maps. But I've just decided to like take quant and then just scarabs. So like I have invested a lot into scarab drop rate, just because there was like nothing else I wanted to take. And then I focus Reliquary so I can find Nameless Seer more. Still haven't got a single Nameless Seer Scarab, but yeah. That's basically my T17 Alice tree. And then for the Scarabs, I usually run like 2 Domination Scarabs if I can get them. And then you can also run this Scarab here, which I ran out of, which is portals cannot be consumed like 50% of the time. And then so I run the Portal Scarab, I run 2 Shrine Scarabs, and then I run a Einhar Scarab to guarantee Einhar. And then I click Heist on the map craft to guarantee Huck and his auras. And then I put like a blue altar in case I can like get more quant or something. And that's basically my T17 setup. And I found this to be like a pretty good setup. You know, it's really fun to like have all these buffs in the map. You know, so, you know, I definitely would recommend something like that. And if your build is like more powerful than mine, you can also spec fully into like increased effective explicit modifiers. And as you can see here, all these highlighted nodes can give you increased modifier effect, which will scale your loot to much higher levels if your build can handle it. So yeah, you can also do that. So that's basically my T17 setup. And then for the gear, one of the best things about this build is that all the gear is extremely SSF viable. The only unique that you really need is Kitava's Thirst, in my opinion, and you don't even need that for a single target. It just increases your quality of life and mapping by a lot. So I would definitely recommend like target farming that. And then as for gems, you know, just Ice Nova of Frostbolts, you can farm lab for this. You can also farm lab for Frostblink of Wintry Blast, which I've heard is really OP for clear, but I did not happen to have one, and I can't be asked to farm lab to get a Wintry Blast thing. So yeah, I'm just using the normal Frostblink. I guess like farming a level 21 Archmage is really important. As you can see here, if I decrease the level of Archmage from 21 to 20, you can see here that I lose like 250k damage. So, you know, really nice to have a level 21 of Archmage. You get a nice amount of damage from that. That's like the only big 21 to go for. I guess you could go for like other ones as well, but you know, getting the 21-20 Archmage is definitely a priority. Other than that, you know, a lot of the gear is just random shit. The boots, helmet, and glove, and the body armor are basically, you know, just generic mana / suppress gear. So you can like use a variety of methods to make these. You can gravecraft it, but I think what I've done is just I did a combination of like fossils, essences, and rog. So like rog is like pretty good at giving you like a, you know, a reasonable amount of gear. You can also use this one essence that gives you mana, which I ran out of because I used all of them, but there is one essence, I think it's this one here that I don't have, that gives you mana on armor. So you can like try to craft gear with that. But yeah, you're basically just looking for suppression, like tier 1 or tier 2, and then life, and then mana, and then res. And if you can just get some reasonable rare gear, you're basically good to go. On the gloves, these implicits are mandatory. Unnerve is just a clean damage boost, and then lightning damage leeches life, allows you to sustain your life with corrupted soul. On the body armor, I would say the mana recovery rate is really nice, obviously because of Archmage. And then the damage taken recouped as life is also like, it's okay, but you don't need that. You can basically go for whatever you want. I just happened to get this. And then on your boots, action speed, you know, the best for damage. And then the other one doesn't matter too much. I just chose to get avoid bleed, but it doesn't really matter. And then on the helmet, this combination I think is optimal. You definitely want to get the taken as, because you have no armor in this build. And then the cast speed is just like, you know, really nice for the build. And then also, if you have an open prefix on your helmet, you can craft taken as, which again, you know, great defensive layer because this is not an armor build. And then I guess just like get chaos res whenever you can. The belt is also pretty straightforward, just life mana res. It does help if you can get a big roll of strength, because this build does require some strength, and you don't really get that much on the tree, so getting strength is really important. Oh, I also forgot to talk about tattoos on this build, but here I'm running these two. I'm running this one with a hinder on hit, because I don't think I have a way to hinder, and this reduces enemy movement speed by 30%. So I'm just running like one of these to get like, you know, that buff or that debuff on the enemy. I think it's like nice to run one of these, but I don't want to run too many of these because, you know, mana equals, or intelligence equals mana and ES. So, you know, definitely don't want to like erase too much of your int. So I just like run one of these. And then I was also experimenting with knockback. I think it's actually optimal to have like 2 knockback tattoos. Like I actually had 2, but then I deleted one because of strength issues. But if you can get 20% knockback on this build, it feels really good for mapping. You just slap on, you know, 2 of these tattoos and then you run faster projectiles. And then what happens is like you knock the enemies back as you're casting this shit. And then it's just insane. Like the enemy is just like knocked back, and the downside of faster projectiles is like negated because you're like knocking the enemies back into the Ice Novas. So it's really cool interaction. Like I wish I could like, you know, get more strength on this build and then run like another knockback tattoo and I'd have like 20% knockback. And it doesn't like decrease your bossing ability because a lot of bosses like can't really be knocked back. Like I don't think you can knock back like, you know, the T17 map bosses. I could be wrong, but even if you could, I think it would be fine. It's just that, yeah, I think 20% knockback, it just happens to be like the sweet spot for faster projectiles. And I think it's also fine for like returning and slower as well. So yeah, that's something that you can experiment with. But yeah. Moving on to the other gear pieces. So this build like scales really well with like good gear. If you can get like, you know, so obviously life and mana are the main ones that you should go for in terms of like affixes. But like there's also a lot of really good suffixes that you can get on jewelry that are all very high value. Getting dexterity is really good for your grace and, you know, Val Haste. And then getting strength is great for like attribute requirements as well. And then also on jewelry, you can get cast speed. So like I have 16% cast speed here and like 18% cast speed here, which is like a lot of cast speed. So like if you can get like cast speed on your jewelry, like on every one, you'll have a lot of damage, and cast speed makes this build feel really good. So would definitely recommend that. And then you can also get chaos res as well. So you have a lot of different options for like jewelry suffixes. So like, you know, every like amount, like every like improvement to your gear on this build makes a big difference, which is like really nice. And like, you know, every level also makes a big difference because you can get mana, and then mana increases your damage and survivability, so that's great. And then yeah, you also have Arcane Cloak, which also, oh, I forgot to talk about Arcane Cloak. Yeah, you have like automation Arcane Cloak in this build, which like randomly will give you a 5,000 buffer of, you know, like of damage, and it has like pretty good uptime too, right? So, you know, it's pretty good. So yeah, if you have like Arcane Cloak up and you have full mana, you have like 20,000 like EHP pool, which is insane. Anyway, going back to the gear. So yeah. So yeah, there's like a lot of really good affixes on the jewelry. Cast speed is definitely the big one. You can also get mana regeneration rate on the suffix, which is not a priority, but it's like obviously nice to get it. But yeah, cast speed is the big one here. So yeah. And then here I crafted reduced effective shock, which I combo with Garricon Pantheon to get shock immune, and then Brine King for freeze immune and reduced effective chill. And I'm running this jewel here for more chill reduction. If you have another jewel that has reduced effective chill, you should put it like here, so you can get like clean, like pure chill immune, but whatever. I could also have gotten chill immune on my boots, but I wanted onslaught, so yeah. It's probably better to like just run. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can get the, yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever. Okay, yeah. Okay, moving on to the most important item here. It's probably the wand. So I was actually really lucky this league, and I dropped a profane wand. I dropped a mirror, so I grave crafted this wand and then I mirrored it, which is the first time I've ever used a mirror in SSF, which felt kind of cool. But yeah, the wands need to be profane wands for the cast speed, and then because of grave crafting, you can actually craft some super insane shit. So this wand is not optimal. This wand would be perfect if the lightning damage was spell damage, because I can even demonstrate here, like if I were to take my wand and like, or how do I demonstrate this? So like if I were to like add a modifier here, like, you know, increased spell damage, if I add that mod, it's like 1 million DPS. Whereas if I add like added damage to spells, or if I removed the added lightning to spells, it's only like 200k. So like if I had like spell damage, I would have like 800k more damage. So this wand is like not perfect. Like you don't actually want the added lightning because Archmage already adds a lot of lightning, but it just happened to roll like this, so I stuck with it. I think what I should have done in retrospect is like try to recraft this wand to get the spell damage on the prefix, because the fracture is like really good. I definitely kind of, you know, missed the ball there, but I really wanted to use the mirror, so I did, and now I'm stuck with this. Yep. But it is what it is, you know? Yeah, you definitely should go for spell damage on the implicit there, but everything else on the wand is perfect. Double damage is nice, and it does work with spells. Mana regen is nice, T1 mana, and then, you know, the fractures are tier 1 as well. Okay, and then, you know, finish it off with like 30 qual beastcraft and heist quality. Okay, so about the crafting this wand, so there's basically two ways that you can craft this wand here. So here is you know, the graveyard crafting tool. You know, I would really recommend you use this to craft with a graveyard. So this is the setup that I use to craft my wand, which I think is optimal. So here I got to this setup by clicking tier 1 cast speed, tier 1 mana regen, tier 1 max mana, and then tier 1 hybrid mana spell damage. And this generated this setup here. So you basically just try to fill your graveyard with whatever it says here. If you get exactly this tier rating, everything is guaranteed to be tier 1. And then you want to slap on 2 explicit mods to get 6 mod. And then you just follow the instructions here and try to get like this ratio of stuff. For my craft, I also did 200% like fracture chance, which, you know, fractures 2 mods, which I think is really good. You could also go for 3 fractures, but I think it's a bit unhinged because the chance that it fractures 3 things that are all good are pretty low. And you could also go for 1 fracture, but then it's like a lot harder to craft. Like it's a lot easier to craft on a base that has 2 fractures than 1 fracture, but like going up to 3 reduces the chance that you land a good fracture. So I think it's optimal to craft it with like 200% fracture chance. And then I also put in the craft an additional item corpse as well, so that I got 2 crafts out of this. You can also like, use more of that as well. But, the more additional item corpses you use, the less, weight corpses you have. So the harder it is to craft the perfect item, the more additional, meta crafting, fracture, craft additional item shit you put in there. So just beware of that. I would also not recommend I would not recommend using like quality in this craft, because you really want it to be perfect, and it's easy to get 30 qual on Beastcraft, and you don't even need it anyway. You can just like go to 20 qual. So like I would not like sabotage this craft by using quality, but like 200% fracture, 1100 modifier rating, plus 2 mods, make sure it's like the right eye level, and then you should be good to go. I think this thing is like okay at eye level 83. Yeah, tier 1 cast speed is eye level 83, so just make sure you have 83 plus and you should be fine. Yeah. Also make sure that you have, these two like in different columns, because if you make it the same column, it's like this or that. You want to have it in different columns, because that almost got me until a viewer in my Twitch chat pointed that out. But yeah. So yeah, this is the setup to like get these 4 mods here. Here you can click generate a sample item and it'll like generate for you like what you could get. And I think the setup is really good because you're not trying to go for spell damage, but you have a high chance of getting it. If you look at the weights here, you have 90 on hybrid, 36 on mana, 55 cast speed, and then 36 on mana regeneration, with everything else substantially less likely. And incidentally, you also have a 55% weight, a 55x weight on spell damage. So the chance that you get spell damage in this craft is actually pretty high. So like if I just like generate a bunch of items, like you should see spell damage fairly often here, because it has a relatively high weight. So there we got it there. Missed. There we got it. There, that's a miss. That's a miss. That's a miss. That's perfect. Like, so I would say this is what I would recommend. You could also like click tier 1 spell damage like this, right? You could also click this and then, try to generate, compute best selection. You could also try to go for this, but I'm not sure if this is optimal, because like enabling this spell damage mod or like targeting it also targets a lot of other stuff that you don't want, which I'll show you guys after this thing generates. I should just have this in another window, but whatever. So like, let me show you guys what happens if you target spell damage. If you target spell damage, the weighting of this only goes from 55 to 67. However, you also make a lot of other bad stuff more likely. Like, it's a lot less likely that you get mana now. And then also, all these gem things also have the caster tag. So then you might brick your item by getting like +1. You might brick your item by getting added cold damage to spells. Like, you just enable a lot of bad shit if you target that mod. So like, and like you only like going from 55 to 67x on this is like not worth it. So I would recommend that you don't target that mod and you only target these mods, cast speed and mana regen, cast speed and then like mana stuff. I guess like one way you could think about it is that you want to target mods that like share the same weights. So like if I want to get every single mana mod, that's really efficient. But if I only want one caster mod, it's not efficient, because if I make caster more likely, it also makes the other ones more likely as well. However, it would be okay to target caster mods if there was a way to make every other caster mod that was not the one I was targeting more scarce, which is possible to a certain extent. But in this case, there's so many different caster modifiers, that targeting this one specifically, I think reduces the chance that you get a good outcome. So I would just recommend rolling with this setup. And you can get a lot more complicated in crafting as well. Maybe this is not exactly optimal. Maybe there's like another, like 200 IQ thing that you could do. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a pretty reliable setup, and then if you can like fracture like 2 good things, you can like finish it off with like, something else. Or you could also just like, YOLO, annul. But yeah, there may be a better one out there than this, but this is like really solid in my opinion. And this is how I would recommend crafting the weapon for this build. Just try to get like 2 fractures with graveyard. And then, yeah. It may be a little challenging to like get the corpses for this, because you would definitely want to do a full graveyard craft. It is a little bit challenging to get the corpses in SSF, but I would recommend you to take this entire wheel, like everything. Like if you take this entire wheel, you get maximum chance to get corpses, and then you can even get an additional corpse here. And then this also incidentally like regenerates your mana, which is kind of cool. And then there's also like one more node here, which allows you to get more corpses. Unresolved Anguish is basically, a corpse craft. And I don't know if I would want to recommend taking any of these. Definitely not this one for uniques. In my opinion, you naturally drop enough modifier to your rating ones that you don't need this. And taking meta mod, this one like reduces the chance that you get like, more likely and more scarce. So I guess you could take you could take this meta mod one to like farm fracturing ones. But in my experience, you don't need to take any of these. You'll get a nice balance of like fracture and like everything else, and like tier rating and like, scarce more likely just without taking any of these. But I would recommend taking this one for the, corpse chance. And the rest of these are just whatever. You don't really need to take these for, you don't really need to take those ones for grave crafting. But yeah, definitely take that 1 point here, and then this wheel here. And then, yeah, that will allow you to, farm a lot of corpses. And then maybe like every 2 to 3 days, you can do a full graveyard craft. Yeah, it still does take a long time to farm these corpses in SSF, which is kind of annoying, but like the amount of power that you get from it is definitely worth it in my opinion. So yeah, that is basically how I crafted the weapon for this build. And that is how I would recommend crafting the weapon this league. Yeah. All right, so that's basically the build. Yeah. As for like improvements, like how I could do better, I guess like, the whole, I mean, just like improving the gear, obviously. Like some of my gear has like tier 5 mana and shit. Like getting like high tier life and mana will make a huge difference. If I could get cast speed on this ring, it would also be good. If I had spell damage instead of lightning damage to spells on my weapons, that would be really good. If I had a Thread of Hope, I could put it here and then hit Heart of Thunder, Breath of Lightning, Arcane Will, and Cruel Preparation. However, that would make my res go down, and it is hard to cap res in this build, so, gotta look out for that. Obviously, Mage Blood would also greatly benefit the build. Like, Mage Blood is insane on this build. Just get a Quartz Flask, and then you can drop Inveterate, and then you can get a Mind Drinker, which will make your mapping experience a lot better, and also give you more mana. So yeah, and like Mage Blood on this build is like totally insane. And then, yeah, leveling up 4 times will allow me to get, even more mana. There is also this helmet that you can gravecraft. I don't really know how I can pull it up for you guys, but there is this haunted modifier on helmets, which is, I don't really know how I can show you, but there's like a haunted modifier that is like you get mana per intelligence, and it's on the helmet. I'm not sure. Okay, so here you have this one. Wait, how do I clear this? Reset. Okay. I'm just gonna like do this randomly to show you guys like what you could get. So there's a haunted modifier that allows you to get intelligent or get mana from your intelligence. That apparently is like a meta thing to do now for this build. I'm trying to like land it so I can show y'all, or maybe I'll put some mana ones in here as well. This is a really good tool, by the way. Like, it is like mind-blowing to me that a tool like this exists. Like, you know, I'm like a web developer by trade, and the fact that this site exists is insane. Like, the UI is like so clean and it's like so helpful to use. It's like everything about this is just incredible. It's like incredible that this even exists and that it was made so fast after the start of the league. Like, really, really cool stuff. I wish I could like have a project as cool as this, but all I have is an AI VTuber that flames chat and me. Yep, that's my coding project. Anyway, oh fuck, I pressed reset. Sorry. Okay. Well, this is not, I should probably have like done this before I started the video. Okay, let's get a bunch of this one. And then let's get a bunch of this one. Okay. So let me see if I can like make the mod appear here so you can see it. Oh, I'm actually not sure that the modifier has a mana tag on it. Alright, now this is making me look bad because I must not be doing this right. Okay, well, I'm actually not even sure it's even on the helmet. Alright, it looks like I'm actually completely cooked and I don't know what I'm talking about. So, alright, forget about the last 5 minutes of this video. In fact, I'm going to end the video there because I messed up. But yeah. There is a haunted modifier on some item that allows you to like get mana from your intelligence, which would result in a huge amount of mana because you have like 300 int on this build. So if you can get that haunted modifier and like fracture that shit, you're going to be totally insane. But like even without it, this build can do all content. You know, I'm just doing T17's with, you know, the greatest of ease. And, you know, I haven't done an Uber yet because every time I do a T17, I get like one fragment, which just arg. Like, why does it drop one fragment per T17? So yeah, I haven't gotten to fight any Ubers yet, but, you know, this build can like guarantee do every Uber. It can guarantee like do every single T17. It's totally overtuned. Play the build while you still can, because it's definitely going away next league unless it's getting the detonate dead treatment and is allowed to stay in the game for like 10 leagues in a row despite being very, very overpowered. So yeah, that's basically the build. You know, everything else is just whatever stuff. that's just been my experiences playing the build in SSF. You know, it's a very fun build to progress. Every single point that you put in really does do a lot. Every single upgrade that you do on this build, you know, feels really nice. And the survivability and everything on this build. And, you know, everything is just really good. So, yeah, play the build while you still can. Hope you enjoyed this kind of, you know, somewhat organized, somewhat freeform build discussion video. Yep, that's about it. I probably missed some things, but it is what it is. We're all human. Alright, I don't even know why I said that. But yeah, link to the PoE will be in the description of this video. I will also link this tree, my T17 farming tree. I will also put this in the description as well. Yeah, alright. Hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye. Holy shit, this video is 51 minutes? What the fuck? Alright, we gotta end it there. Alright. See you in the next one or on stream.